Hello, everyone. I am Dr. KatherineT.Kelly. I am a holistic health psychologist, author, speaker, and soul healing specialist. And I have been doing these Evolving Souls forecasts for several months now, all for the sake of helping you understand a little bit about what is going on within you, within the context of what's going on in the world, as well as how to cope, how to function, how to navigate your way through all of this. Now, the last several months, as most people know, have been very bouncy, have been very uncomfortable, have been very stirred for a lot of people. And July is nothing less than, I guess, more of that and in a bigger way. And what I'm trying to help people understand is that there's a macro level of what's happening. In other words, we're staying aware of what's going on in the world, but at the same time, we are simultaneously going through our own individual evolution as well. And part of what I want to emphasize for July is that as I talk through some of these celestial planetary kind of alignments, is to help you understand, again, July more I think than ever, it's important to understand how you, as a teeny tiny grain of sand on this planet, what your role is in the collective. And that's really kind of what the consciousness is begging us to do and beckoning us to start to realize is, wait a minute, okay, we're not just these grains of sand being tossed around by the water or by the wind. We are actually living beings, and we are, this July, this month is really going to stimulate a lot of internal exploration to help us understand what our identity is, what our role is, what it is that we are as part of the collective, part of the whole. And how beautiful is that? Because we are going to see, and I'm going to walk through the different steps of the celestial kind of alignments, but we are at this point, which is something many of us have been looking for. We are at this point to start looking inward to realize, wait a minute, we have been doing this all wrong. We have been doing this from a much more self-centered, self-focused kind of perspective. We have not been taking into consideration what our impact, our individual impact is on the collective. And so this month is all about, you're going to see this within yourself, but it's all about kind of starting to expand that view to help you understand what your teeny tiny grain of sand that is you, how that plays the part in the collective, how that plays the part in the evolution of humankind. And so I'm going to kind of walk through all the different aspects of this. This is going to be what I'm calling a rapid fire opportunity to expand. Now, because there are so many celestial events that are going to be happening this month, when I was trying to make the notes for how I wanted to explain this to all of you, if you can think about this as this rapid fire approach to contracting, expanding, contracting, expanding, contracting, expanding. And throughout July, we're going to have a lot of that. We're going to start out July from a very reflective place, but then it ramps up and there's all of this energy that's going to be flowing and stirring. And it's going to be like, okay, I'm contracting, I'm looking within, and oh, wait, I'm looking outside of me. And it's going to do that. You're going to feel a little I call it crazy making. It can feel a little crazy making because by the end of one day, you might be thinking, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And then a day or two later, it's going to be like, well, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense at all. So it could be a very crazy making month on an individual micro level, because you're going to be wondering, wait a minute, what is true for me? What is real for me? And then on a macro level, you're going to see the world doing the exact same thing. You're going to see a lot of shifting in the news. Like, wait a minute, wasn't it just yesterday that they were talking about the complete opposite mindset of something that was happening? And then here we are again. It's going to be like completely different. So what the astrologers are saying is that the astrologer that I have followed the most recently, she got to the review of July and said it's going to be a mammoth month. And that was her word. It's going to be a mammoth month. It's going to be one of those months where there's so much happening and so much that's going on, so much that, we can kind of predict. But she said, this is the first time in history when no astrologer on chart or on document has actually seen this configuration. And so I'm going to explain that in just a minute. So this is all about expansion. This is all about that, again, expansion, contracting. But again, if you look back to, it's almost like you have to think about this as labor pains. You have to think about this as tremors prior to an earthquake or to a volcano erupting. There's energy, there's movement, there's something happening that you know is leading to something bigger. And that is really what July is all about. And for people who like everything to stay the same and people who don't like to be disrupted and have some anxiety about, ooh, that feels uncomfortable. Well, this is going to be an uncomfortable month for those people. For people who can open up and go, okay, let me just see where this is taking us. Let me just look at this and observe this and kind of stay emotionally detached but present. That is going to be the best way to ride the waves of this month. And so, it's an interesting month because if you are a fearful person, you're going to look at this month as, oh my gosh, this is scary. I'm terrified. I don't want to deal with this. I'm going to be, popping Xanax or other pills or whatever it is to keep yourself calm. That is not what I'm recommending. I'm actually recommending to stay present and to lean into this and observe. And I'm going to walk you through. I wrote down kind of a six step process for you to kind of think about and present to you so you can keep that in mind as you get through this month, because there is such beautiful fodder for growth in July, even though it's going to be very uncomfortable for a lot of people because they're not going to know what the heck is happening. And like I said, from one day to another, they're going to think that they're going to think they're crazy. They're going to think that they're losing it because what they knew to be true to them one day is going to change completely the next day. Let me tell you my 6 point pathway for July. First starts off with reflecting. So if you can keep these in mind, I'm going to reiterate these at the end of this video. Reflect, observe, examine, hold on, and assimilate, and then envision or re-envision. So I'm going to say that again. Reflect, observe, examine, hold on, meaning holding on like a roller coaster, assimilate, and then re-envision. So to start out the month, so for those of you who know what Mercury retrograde means, so Mercury in retrograde is a time when, and I said this in my last video, but it's a time when Mercury comes zooming by Earth and creates sort of a gravitational pull that shakes things up a little bit. Now, this is not a time for action. Mercury in retrograde, so it went into retrograde on June 29th. It stays in retrograde. So in other words, there's still going to be that kind of reverberation energy until the 23rd of July of this month. Communication, interactions, like what are the interactions that you're having with others? What are the relationships that you have? How is technology going for you? All those kinds of things. And really, Mercury in retrograde is a time to slow down and reflect, slow down and look and go, gosh, what's coming up for me? What is my old stuff that's coming up? What is some of the stuff that, is, I tell people, full moon, menstrual cycle, and Mercury in retrograde are fabulous for bringing stuff to the surface that needs attention anyway. So in other words, for the first part of the month, start paying attention to, gosh, what is the stuff that's coming up? What is the stuff that seems to be coming right in front of me again? Maybe it's old stuff you haven't thought about for years. Maybe it's some stuff you've been pushing down. Maybe it is, I don't know, whether it is relationship, a kind of, I don't know, turmoil, whatever it might be. This is a time, the first couple weeks of the month are time to reflect, really a time to just kind of go within and watch and observe. And then things start ramping up. And that's why I say this is a time you reflect first, you observe, you examine, and then hold on for dear life, because there's going to be a lot happening after that. I'm going to go through the dates of the major events that are happening. Now, you do not have to be an astrologer to understand this. I am not an astrologer. I'm a very novice, nerdy kind of astrology follower. I love it. I think it's fascinating. The more I learn about it and then watch the world for what, the astrology is saying, it's uncanny how spot on it is. So I'm going to give you the main dates because there are several. So like I said, Mercury is in retrograde from June 29th until July 23rd. So that reflective communication, that space where you're just kind of looking within. July 15th, July 18th, July 20th, another July 20th, July 21st, July 25th. There's two things that happen on July 25th as well. And then I'm going to talk through kind of what happens, another layer of what's happening toward the end of the month. So there's a lot happening. I will read it out to tell you, for those of you who are kind of into astrology, what all this, if this helps you connect in with things. July 15th, Uranus sextiles Neptune. July 18th, Uranus trines Pluto. That only happens 250 or after every 250 years. And I'm going to explain all of this in a minute, why this is an important month. Excuse me. July 20th, Jupiter trines Neptune. Also on July 20th, it also opposes Pluto. July, let's say 21st, Jupiter sextiles Uranus. July 25th, Neptune sextiles Pluto. So we've got all these like multi-dimensional kinds of things happening. July 25th, there's a grand trine with all kinds of things happening during that time. And then it's going to follow through for the rest of the month. So for those of you who understand the planetary meanings of those, you're going to realize, wow, that is a lot. Now, you do not have to understand any of that. I'm not going to really go through all of that because I don't fully understand it, but I do understand the dynamics that go with it. And I want to explain what I do know in that these events don't happen simultaneously all the time because they happen every so often. So, for instance, Uranus trines Pluto about every 250 years. Every other one of those pairings happens maybe every 100 years, every 120 years, every 300 years, some are every 20 or 40, 60 years. So, in other words, what's happening and why July is so important is that so many of these events are happening simultaneously because where they are in kind of the rotation of how all of those planets are working, it's all converging to happen at once. And that's a lot. There's going to be a lot of energy about it. There's going to be a lot of change. There's going to be a lot of, really, there's going to be a lot of everything. There's just going to be a lot of energy. And so the main reason that I do these is, again, I'm a psychologist. I'm a mental health professional. I see these patterns in the people that I work with, that they're coming in feeling more anxious, or they're having relationship issues, or they're having more depression, or they're feeling like, geez, I thought I was done with that. I thought I resolved that years ago. I pay attention to this because I know that people are going to come into my office feeling a certain kind of way, and then I can help them understand from the perspective of, oh, yes, this is you, meaning that it is something you're supposed to be dealing with, but it's not just you because the universe is wanting you to heal and evolve. That is what this is all about. I say over and over again that nothing happens to us, it happens for us. Even the most challenging things happen for us. It is for the sake of our evolution. It's for the sake of our soul to move forward and overcome and learn and grow. And again, my favorite word, evolve. So all of this stuff that's going to be happening in July is for our own sake. It's just it happens to be happening all at once. So again, I'm going to talk through Mercury in retrograde just a little bit more because it is a more common thing to understand. More and more people are understanding what Mercury in retrograde is. It's really a time, it's a time of reflection. It's a time of going in. It's a time of not starting anything new. It's not a time to sign a contract because that's something that is starting something new. But Mercury is going into retrograde in Cancer. Cancer is an emotional kind of sign. It is a sensitive kind of sign. And so what is very likely to happen is that some of your emotional stuff can come up. You might feel more emotional. Something might come out of the blue and you start crying or you start getting upset about it. Everything is there to emphasize what's already there. But because Mercury is in retrograde in Cancer, which is a water sign, it's going to wash over you. It's not going to be subtle. It's not going to be, it could be subtle, but really it's going to kind of come in like a wave and you're going to be like, what the heck just happened? And then the next day you might be feeling perfectly okay. So if you have these waves come through, don't immediately go to your doctor thinking that your medication's not working well enough. Don't immediately think, oh my gosh, I'm falling apart. Observe, pay attention to this. Learn what is coming up because it is probably what is supposed to be dealt with at the time. So again, old feelings. The other thing that happens during Mercury in retrograde, especially when there are emotions involved, like with when it's going into Cancer, is you might finally start putting things together and go, oh my gosh, that's why that happened. Connecting those dots, putting it together, going, oh my gosh, 10 years ago that happened. I'm now understanding it. I'm now able to process it, or I'm now able to release it. So, this is an important time for our soul's evolution because the more we heal, the more we can move forward. Again, emotions are going to be higher, sensitivities will be higher, kind of your also your intuition could be higher. So this could be a really good time to practice meditation or try more to connect in with spirit or source or even with your own soul. Also, there could be family or relationship wounds coming up. This whole idea of, when we go through Mercury in retrograde in general, it's oftentimes about relationships. It's oftentimes about, wow, what are the other soul to soul relationships that I have in my life and how are they working? Well, this one in particular, because it is in Cancer, it might be heightened to have some of those experiences so that you can heal them or examine them or connect those dots and go, oh, that's what that was about. And so that could be really important. And the other thing that we are moving into, and this is all of July, all of moving forward, is that this particular Mercury in retrograde, because it is in Cancer, it is actually, I'm not going to say starting, but it is initiating the next level of heart centered awareness. And so it is the time where we are going to be maybe feeling a little more compassionate toward one another. It might be that we're feeling more remorse because, oh gosh, wow, I didn't even realize what my behavior could have done to someone. So we could be doing a lot of that evaluation and be more compassionate toward others. This might also bring up a whole lot of vulnerability because people don't like to admit that they've done something wrong or hurt someone else. It also could bring up our vulnerability because maybe we're not used to using our emotions. Maybe we shove them down. So we're going to have some stuff stirred this month. And as a psychologist, I'm watching out for it because I know that people will be bringing these kinds of stories and thoughts into the office. And also from a soul healing perspective, I usually have kind of a rash of people calling for Akashic record readings or soul realignment sessions because they are feeling something that they know that there's something deeper going on and they want to heal that. So this is a wonderful, wonderful time. So the first couple weeks of July are going to be very reflective, very kind of sensitive and emotional, and kind of going within, really kind of tucking yourself in. So it's a perfect time to do some journaling, do some meditation. I do some of my best meditation when I'm out walking or hiking. So I'm really hoping that I can get out and hike a little bit more and get in nature and kind of just commune a little bit more. But that the first 2 weeks are going to be not calm necessarily, but they're going to be kind of more gentle. Whereas the second half of July, everything starts to ramp up. So I'm just going to go through some of these dates and some of the energies that you may be feeling so that you either as a practitioner can kind of watch out for it for your clients, or you can also watch out for it for yourself or even family members or spouses so that you kind of know what might be going on with them. July 15th. Okay, Uranus sextiles Neptune. Whenever Uranus is involved, it stirs stuff up. Uranus is the planetary energy that stirs stuff up. In this case, the whole idea is okay, something's going to get cracked open. Your awareness is going to get cracked open. Maybe something that you hadn't ever paid attention to is going to get cracked open. Maybe this whole new consciousness thing, maybe this is going to be a time for your own spiritual awakening. But July 15th and kind of a day or two before and after are going to be energies that are going to crack things open. It could be that your old ideas, your old ways of doing things are like, wow, okay, suddenly you realize I can't do that anymore. Perceptions. So again, it's going to be this cracking open and things are going to go crack and then it's going to expand. It's your awareness is going to expand. And this is where kind of the idea of something being mind blowing comes in because you're going to be sitting there and something's going to happen. It's going to go, wow, that is big. So intuition can sharpen, your gut instincts can sharpen. In other words, you have the possibility, let me say it that way, if you allow it, to really widen your perspective, really kind of open this up. And this is really a big part of this. If you've ever heard of the whole concept of the age of Aquarius, This is part of this is the opening of awareness, the opening of consciousness. What is this really going to mean? This is where that little teeny tiny grain of sand comes in, because you're going to realize, wow, I'm this teeny tiny thing. And yet my behavior, my emotions, my reactions, all of that impacts the world as a whole. You're going to start to realize a little bit more, and maybe even in bigger ways, how connected you are to the collective. And this is what is so beautiful to me, because this is what's supposed to happen as far as our evolution. So July 15th, again, Uranus sextiles Neptune. Uranus is the stirrer. So if you think about something being kind of quiet and something coming around and shaking it up or stirring it up, that is the planet Uranus. So if you can welcome this and welcome your mind being cracked open, it's going to go a lot easier. Just a couple days later, July 18th, Uranus trines Pluto. You don't have to understand what trine means to understand that it's another form of stirring. It's another form of um, emphasizing or accentuating, that's probably a better word, accentuating the energies that are already there. So this is where you're going to start to maybe have some shifts in identity, because you're now realizing that little grain of salt is something bigger. It's connected to something bigger. It's not just you individually moving around. It is, wow, I now know that I'm impacting the greater good. I'm impacting the world outside of me. So there can be some identity transformations. There can be some identity crises. Oh my gosh, what I thought I knew about myself doesn't make sense anymore. It doesn't feel true anymore. So look at this from the perspective of, again, if you can welcome the mind cracking open, observing how you feel when you're feeling this kind of identity thing being challenged, it's going to help you ease into this more, because it's the natural developing process of evolution. Again, think about an earthquake. An earthquake, when there's an earthquake, there's always a volcanic activity somewhere in the world, because everything that's happening under the surface is connected. So when an earthquake happens, it's because there's lava moving under the system, or under the surface somewhere in the world. And it could be on the complete opposite side of the world that you see the earthquake, that the volcano's happening. Same thing with us as individuals. If you think about, gosh, something is stirring, something's stirring, well, it's going to start to crack open your ideals of who you are, that identity. It's going to make you question, gosh, who am I and who have I been? And some of that is not going to feel good for some of you, because you're going to be like, oh my gosh, I never realized how cruel I was to someone, or mean I was. Or in other ways, it might mean that you start to crack up and go, wait a minute, everybody's told me I've been a terrible person, but when I look back, I'm actually a really good person. So the cracking open can happen in lots of ways, but there is going to be an internal need to take a look at who you are as an individual. And the way that I would look at that is, and urge you to look at that and even start using the language, is to start looking at who you are as a soul, because the soul is the energetic essence of who we are. When you think about energetic essence of who we are, because it's energetic, energy does not stop and end. It basically fans out and affects everything around us. And this is partially why I think more people are going to start to be soul conscious, become aware that, wow, my soul, my individual essence of who I am actually does impact the outside world. So it's gonna trigger some identity shifts in you. So this is really a very transformational time, but it could cause some kind of reverberation in people. And just when I mean reverberation, I'm thinking, gosh, there's going to be some people that are going to have a hard time with that identity. But it's the natural step in this whole process. That was July 15th, Uranus, again, the mind cracking open. July 18th, kind of that whole identity shift, identity awareness. July 20th, Jupiter trines Neptune. Now, Jupiter is the planet of expansion. It is the planet of kind of mystery and expansion, and moving outward, and its excitement and its adventure. And so this is where, just a few days before, on the 15th, mind's cracking open. July 18th, you're like, oh no, what is this? And then on the 20th, we go back to that expansion piece of, but wait a minute, with me changing, with me understanding new things, with me seeing this, it might give me some new ideas of, wow, who could I be? What could I do? So there's going to be like this excitement that's involved with that time as well, even though it might be really scary and uncomfortable for people, but people might be able to go, oh, wait a minute, what am I capable of? What is my potential? What do I want to do? What could I do? So and even looking at, gosh, I didn't think I could go down this path, but maybe I can go down this path. So it could be sudden changes in jobs. It could be sudden changes in relationships. It could be a whole lot of things, but it's all going to be stimulating growth and expansion. And that's a wonderful thing. And it could be that some dreams that you had in mind for years, maybe it's time to take some steps forward. And you're going to be thinking about it, going, "Gosh, maybe this is the time." So again, it's like you're going to have these dates that go through the rest of the month, and I'm going to talk through the rest of them. But you're going to feel a little like you're going back and forth. You're going to be feeling like you're expanding and contracting, and it can be crazy making. It's going to be one of those times where people are going to have that rapid fire change in awareness. But if you can look at it as part of like a contraction before a birth, I think that's going to be really, really helpful for you. July 20th. So Jupiter opposes Pluto. So Jupiter again is all about expansion. But this is also about release. So it's about, okay, what's getting in the way? What have I been telling myself all along that I can't do, or what has been holding me back? And so it's this whole idea of, like, again, you're going to be expanding. You're going to be thinking about yourself as that little grain in the sand. And it's also going to be it's going to start you. I'm looking at my notes to make sure I'm saying this correctly. It's going to be this whole idea of looking at who you are as a soul, who you are as an individual, and going, what does the world need from me? What is it that I'm here that I can actually provide to the world? And again, that could cause some stirring for people because that whole idea of, wow, I'm not just in this for myself. How am I supposed to expand my view so that I can help the world? The reason that I say it could cause some challenges is that some people are perfectionists. Some people are codependent. Some people are, ultimate givers. And so it could trigger more ideas about, gosh, yeah, I want to give, but ooh, is that healthy for me? So there's so many things to think about. But this is about how, again, this is yet another date. Let me say it this way. This is yet another date of helping us understand how we, as one individual, one little grain in the sand, grain of sand, is part of the collective growth, part of the collective evolution. So that's July 20th. The very next day, Jupiter sextiles Uranus. So here we have Uranus again, that stirred up kind of feeling. This is sparky. This is the expansion is kind of like kaboom. What else is going to come to awareness? And so it's that whole idea of maybe there's a huge set of creative ideas. Maybe it's innovations. Maybe it is, oh my gosh, now I understand what I need to do with this idea from 10, 20 years ago. So it could be just a revisiting of an old idea, but an expansion of how you are going to actually execute that plan or that dream. So it's like this whole idea of having these creative ideas, but then it's going to be like boom, boom, boom. It's going to be like sparklers going off where, okay, I've got to do this. I got to do that. I got to do this. So it's going to initiate a whole lot of interest and need to take action, a whole lot of interest and need to do something with all of those ideas, which is great as long as you are discerning and as long as you don't jump the gun and do something that is going to get you into trouble. So again, there's all of this new energy coming, but it's so important to stay aligned with who you are as a soul. Stay aligned with your goals. And so I just, again, it's this kind of crazy making time. July 25th, Neptune sextiles Pluto. This is going to pull you back again to go, wait a minute, but what is my truth? What is the truth of what I can offer the world? So again, still a lot of excitement, a lot of potentiality, a lot of pushing you forward. But at the same time, you're going to be looking at this as, but is this real? Can I really do this? Can I, maybe yesterday was just a pipe dream. Maybe it's something that, okay, this was a fantasy. So this is where, again, it's going to be important to just ride the waves of, I'm in this, I'm out of this. I'm in this, I'm out of this. I'm expanding, I'm contracting, because it's an important time for you to realize that expansion again is part of the growth. It's like those tremors that happens before big change. So July 15th to July 25th, huge windows of consciousness, huge openings and opportunities. Now I'm going to say opportunities for people to grow, people to expand, people to go, oh my gosh, now I see why this is happening. Now I see my part in everything. Now I see why this thing that's been happening in the world, I now see how it makes sense. I see now why, all of this turmoil that I've watched for so many months and years. Oh, now I understand how it's part of the bigger picture. So much is going to be, I'm not going to say going to be clear. You will have the opportunity for so much more to become clear if you stop and look to see what is actually real in front of you. And I say opportunity because a lot of people outrun discomfort. They don't want to feel comfortable, so they turn the other eye and then they miss the opportunity to grow. What I'm going to encourage you to do is, again, observe, examine all of that so that you can actually see how is everything that's happening in the world happening within the context of what I need to be doing for myself and vice versa. What is going on within me throughout this month that I can now look at the context of how can I serve? How can I offer my my services to the world in whatever way that might be? The one thing I will say is, and I've said this many, many times with the work I do, is that if all of us were doing our individual work to heal and evolve as both humans and souls, then we would collectively come together anyway. So even if you come to the conclusion that your purpose in this world is basically to go to therapy or go to coaching or do whatever you need to do so you can be the person you want to be, you are still positively affecting the collective. Because again, if every one of the 8.6 billion souls on this planet did their work, we wouldn't have war. We wouldn't have all of this divisiveness. We wouldn't have all of this stuff that's going on. So July is going to be a major wake-up call for this. And it's going to be really interesting to see what happens on the big screen, meaning what happens in the news globally, as well as what's happening individually. So again, the last couple of weeks of the month, well, really the whole month, the first part of the month is about reflecting on what do I need to change? What's no longer fitting? What do I need to let go of? The next half of the month is going to be a lot about, okay, wow, I see this clearly. I see what I need to do. I need to see what I need to let go of. Here's my new vision. Here's my new dream. And then you're going to be like, oh, wait, let me reevaluate this. And oh, then you're going to step back into it. So there's going to be a lot of new ideas, learning how to trust yourself, learning how to kind of step into this new energy. And then by kind of like the third, about the third week in July, around the 25th, this is when, again, they call it the Grand Trine is exact. So this is where there's going to be a lot more shifting. So there's going to be a lot more concretizing of these ideas, crystallization of these ideas, much more clarity, much more awareness, much more of a plan going forward, kind of a deeper idea of where we need to go in life. And, what I wrote down here too is the fabric of the world will be changing. And so we're going to see in the news a lot of the resistance of that change, and we're going to see a lot of that jumping in of the change. So in other words, we're going to see some things that seem like they are opposing. There's going to be people digging in. There's going to be kind of that discomfort of, I don't want to change. I'm not going to do this differently. And yet there's going to be more and more of the masses that are like, yeah, you are. You're going to change. This is not working for us anymore. So it's going to be fascinating to see how this all unfolds. Now, this is another interesting thing that's happening on July 26th. It's called the Nodes of Fate. Now, again, I'm not an expert on this stuff, but the second I hear the word fate, I'm like, ooh, okay, something's going to happen. So the Nodes of Fate, basically this happens, according to the astrologers, about every 18 years. And the synodic cycle is what they call it. And so this is how I wrote this down. It activates where the world needs to grow and where we will grow within it. So in other words, this is a huge time of change. July is going to be big on change. And so because the nodes of faith are all shifting right on the 26th, and again, it'll start to feel like something's shifting the few days before that, it's going to feel like an activation of where the world really needs to go, because as we all know, what's going on in the world is not working very well. So it's either all going to fall apart and we have to rebuild, or something's going to shift to come in, kind of swoop in and go, yeah, no, we're not doing this anymore. So a lot is going to be going. So future as we know it will change, or excuse me, the reality as we know it will change. Future as we know it will unfold. We'll start to figure out, okay, this is how we're going to do this. But it's a lot about globally outgrowing patterns and personally, individually outgrowing patterns as well. So some of my other notes that I wrote here are it's going to go from rumination to, oh, hadn't thought about doing it that way. So, it could be very, very uncomfortable for the first several weeks of July because it could create worry and rumination. But there's going to be an energetic shift where people are tired of worrying about it. People are just going to be like, okay, maybe I just need to see how this unfolds. We have been so activated for so long with all of the things that are going on, not only in our country, but around the world, that it feels uncomfortable for people. And as I've said many, many times before, we don't change unless we're tired enough of ourselves or our situations. I think partially what's going to happen is as part of these multiple planetary alignments is that we're going to be so tired of the turmoil. We're going to be so tired of just worrying about what's going to happen that a lot more people will be more soulful. A lot more people will just kind of go within and go, okay, I'm just going to let this unfold. I'm going to kind of get out of my worry brain, my rumination, and go, okay, well, you know what? I've made it through as much as I have so far. Let me watch how this goes. That doesn't mean we won't fight for ourselves if we need to fight for ourselves. But what it means is that we're going to have a new resolve that we're going to somehow move out of this. And I think that's going to be really important. So another thing that you're going to notice, and I said this at the beginning of this video, is that people who have a need to control and don't want things to change and want things to go a certain way and want to know the outcome, that you're going to have to get over that. You're going to have to figure out how to move beyond that. Because from this point on, we're going to have so much change, and we're going to have so much innovation, and we're going to have so many things that are shifting that we just have to learn to roll with it. We have to learn to kind of go into that place where we trust that. So what I wrote down here is, again, release the need to control, but basically go within to listen to your own gut, listen to your own intuition to say, yeah, I'm going to be okay. So it's an interesting process. Let's see here. Let me see. Yeah. So again, this goes back to us realizing that we are part of the larger vision. That larger vision is not going to come pretty quickly for a collective of the world. It's going to be part of the unfolding. And the reason is there's too many people on the planet to come together all at once. So this is going to be, even though July is huge, this is going to be how things feel for a while because there's going to have to be enough of an acclimation to the new energies and an openness to changing along with them. So again, it might feel a little bumpy, might feel a little uncomfortable, but the beautiful thing is this is all for our evolution. This is all for the highest good. This is all for betterment, even though it might feel uncomfortable in the process. A few more things I want to say here. Again, there's just a lot going on, and I'm not going to talk through all of it, but just to reiterate, it's very much about looking at your personal significance for the sake of the collective. That is going to be something that is more and more prevalent. And you might even notice people that you never thought could go within might start going within and go, wow, now I see my impact. I'm not saying everybody's going to do that. The people who really are the disruptors in the world are probably not going to suddenly become Mother Teresa. But you could start to see some individuals in your life having more of an awareness, which I think is really good. But it's all going to be about figuring out what that little grain of sand that you are can do to impact the world in a positive way. There is going to be, again, toward the end of the month, and this is where love consciousness comes in. I've talked about love consciousness for decades. And to me, this is what soul evolution is all about. This is why right now, even though there's the potential for all kinds of turmoil, I am so heart-filled, I guess I should say love-filled for what's about to happen because the capacity, the opportunity and the capacity for compassion is so much higher now. And the opportunity to become compassionate, the opportunity to become centered in our hearts and centered in our souls is so much higher than it ever has been. And again, out of 8.6 billion people on the planet, not everybody is going to catch on at the same time. There's going to be some resistance, but there's also going to be a softening. There's going to be this whole like, yeah, okay, these sharp edges that I have or the other person have, yeah, they're going to melt away eventually. But it's so much potential for, again, what I call oneness, what I call love consciousness, what I I look at it from the evolution of the soul, and to me, that is what is so encouraging and so beautiful. Do I think it's going to happen overnight? Hell no, it's not going to. But on the other hand, it's for the sake of soul health, and this is what chokes me up. You know, my mission, my soul's mission is to help people understand the soul. And this is, I think this is really the opportunity of everything I've been working for is the planets are aligning literally to be able to create the opportunity for people to become more soul centered, for people to become more soul alert, to become more soul aware, all of that. And it's really, again, it's beautiful. And it chokes me up because of the fact that this is really a turning point in our history. This is a turning point in our future. And to me, this is where getting back to the soul starts. You know, I've been talking about this for decades, but this is where I think it's going to happen on more a global level. And it won't be fast, but if I can help cultivate that sense of love consciousness in anyone, that's what I'm going to do. So, what do you do to take care of yourselves during this month? And this is, again, a reflective time. So, July will start out very reflective. I'm a huge journal writer. I would say journal as much as you can. Go for those long walks without your Walkman. That's an old term, without your iPod. And try to get like very quiet with your soul. Get that solitude. Get that space in. Start asking questions to yourself and the universe. What is it I need to do? And then just stop and listen to see what answers come. And you can ask source as well. What kinds of things do I do? Am I doing the right thing? Am I going down the right path? What is it that I need to answer? Go within to get the questions answered. Find some quiet time for a retreat. Close the door and go have a Calgon take me away moment in the bathtub to just try to, again, nurture yourself, but be very mindful and present with yourself as well. Meditation for me, my best meditation is when I'm out walking. I sit all day with the work that I do, so for me, my body wants to move, and so I have a very hard time sitting to meditate unless I've already been very active and I've burned out some of that energy. So go out for a walk without other people or without your dogs, and don't take your music with you, and just try to get into that space. If you need to go on a retreat, go on a retreat. Do what you can do to get within. I think that's going to help. But nurture your soul as much as you can right now. Honor your thoughts and your feelings. Whatever emotions that are coming up, acknowledge them. Don't try to shove them away. We cannot outrun our soul. It will come back. It will shove it in our face if we need to. So try your best to, if you're feeling tearful, just stick with it for a few minutes. If you're feeling I don't know, reflective or nostalgic about something, just stay with it. Stay with that. If you're feeling remorse, then feel the remorse, whatever it might be. Allow the emotions in, because as much as they might be uncomfortable for the human, they are the best fodder for the soul. So those emotions are an important part of our soul's evolution. Figure out what questions you have about the world. So jot down your questions, and because that kind of awareness of, gosh, what questions do I have about how the world works or how the soul works or how planets work or whatever, because it's going to help you expand whatever you can. Go back also to nesting. Figure out, what do you need to do to create your nest? What do you need to do to create that nurturing environment for yourself and your soul? Because, with Mercury going into retrograde in Cancer, Cancer is all about home and family and relationship. And so it's a time to be kind of in your home, both individually, your home, but also create that nurturing environment for yourself. So for me, I used to light candles every morning when I was getting ready for work. I somehow got out of the habit during the beginning of COVID. So something like going back and doing what you used to do to nurture yourself. Um, Incense, candles, putting nice lotion on, whatever it is that can help you feel like you are nurturing the house of your soul, the body, and also the home of your body. So in other words, how can you create more of a sacred space for yourself? Again, go into that place of identifying, how do I affect the world? am I leaving the positive mark that I want to leave? Am I leaving a soulful mark? What kind of mark am I leaving? Because if it's not soulful or positive, well, then maybe that's what you're supposed to change. So this is a time to look at your legacy. What is it that you're leaving behind as you move through life? Also, any old stories, old feelings, old relationships that are coming up, pay attention to them, see if there's anything to heal and let go of and release or renew. It could be a time of renewal for you with relationships too, that had gone awry. So that's something to think about as well. And then just be open to those new like aha moments and those new like, oh wow, where did that come from? Because as the mind cracks open, so does consciousness. As your heart and soul crack open, all kinds of energy could be flowing for you. And it's going to be really, I think, interesting and important to embrace it and welcome it and observe it so that you can kind of glean from it where whatever you can, and so that you do allow the best opportunity and create the best foundation for your soul to evolve. I'm going to go back and I'm going to talk about those six steps that I mentioned before. I mentioned the idea of reflecting, observing, examining, holding on. So in other words, hold on for dear life during, these back and forth contractions, expansions that you feel. Assimilate. So in other words, make sure that you're assimilating the information through journal writing, reflection, whatever it might be, meditation, and then look at the new vision. What is the new vision? And again, I don't expect any of this to be super clear by the end of July, because this is really the new energies that are being ushered in that are going to be around for a while. And so that's the thing, is like, even though these planetary alignments are happening, remember, many of them don't start over for 250 years. Some of them are 100 years. So the energies, these combined energies that we are going to really start feeling in July are going to be here for a long time. And this is like the soul sandbox heyday for me, because to me, this is where we can really expand and we can evolve and we can raise our consciousness and we can see what our impact is on others. And so that's in fact why I used this background. This background is part of my website, but I wanted to use this background today because this is really about going from the inside and expanding outwards so we see our place in the world. And that's where some of the identity stuff can come in. But if you look at the energy, if you look at the layers of this, if you look at those, again, right here, all these different like energetic reverberations, it's like the expansion of what can happen if we can just stay present during July and realize that this is the new consciousness. This is how we embrace this new world. This is how we move through turmoil. This is how we observe rather than get absorbed by things. So would love to hear what you have to say about this. I really hope that these videos help you, because that's my whole role, is to help souls evolve. And that's why I talk about bringing ancient wisdom to the modern soul, is basically using ancient tools like astrology, which has been around for thousands of years, 5,000, 6,000 years, bringing it into modern day and helping you know how to use it, and knowing how it is that you can evolve as a human and a soul, and also create what I call that sense of radiant living, that alignment with yourself. And in a world of turmoil, we don't always think we can do that, and yet we absolutely can. And the start of what's happening in July is going to carry on. So would love to hear your questions, would love to hear your comments. I hope this does help you. Have a wonderful day, and yeah, get ready to evolve. Bye-bye.